Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Bueno, señores, Donald Trump acaba de terminar una conferencia de prensa en el despacho Oval que sinceramente es difícil de ver sin preguntarse ¿qué es lo que está pasando? Como pueden ver, ahí tenía a Kash Patel, tenía también a Pam Bondi, como si eso no le diera algo de credibilidad. Pero lo que dijo fue tan absurdo que tengo que mostrarles parte por parte lo que realmente pasó. Quiero que empecemos por esto, y es Donald Trump afirmando que en Chicago hay muchísimas mujeres de color caminando con gorras MAGA, que todas lo aman, y que eso es lo que se ve ahora en Chicago. Y sí, señores, lo dijo con toda la cara de sinvergüenza. Escuchen.
Mr. President, on Venezuelan votes, I want to ask you, why not have the Coast Guard stop them, which it is empowered by law to do? You know, this way you can confirm who's on the boat and ensure that they're doing what you suspect.
Because we've been doing that for 30 years, and it has been totally ineffective. They have faster boats. Some of these boats are seriously, I mean, they're world-class speedboats, but they're not faster than missiles. But we've been trying to do that for years, and so much of the drugs, 25-30% would come in through the seas. Right now we have, I would say, none coming in through the seas. In fact, I don't know about the fishing industry. If you want to go fishing, a lot of people aren't deciding to even go fishing. We've almost totally stopped it by sea. Now we'll stop it by land.
What's the next step?
But it never worked. It never worked when you did it in a very politically correct manner.
Luego una periodista le pregunta algo bastante lógico. ¿Por qué no se aseguran de quiénes son las personas en estos barcos pesqueros que últimamente están bombardeando en el Caribe, en Venezuela y en Colombia? ¿Que no deberíamos comprobar si realmente son criminales? Y bueno, que si aún así lo fuera, no ese es un crimen de guerra. Y bueno, Trump, sin inmutarse, básicamente le dijo que no le importa. Tal cual, señores. Escuchen.
Mr. President, on Venezuelan votes, I want to ask you, why not have the Coast Guard stop them, which it is empowered by law to do? You know, this way you can confirm who's on the boat and ensure that they're doing what you suspect.
Because we've been doing that for 30 years, and it has been totally ineffective. They have faster boats. Some of these boats are seriously, I mean, they're world-class speedboats, but they're not faster than missiles. But we've been trying to do that for years, and so much of the drugs, 25-30% would come in through the seas. Right now we have, I would say, none coming in through the seas. In fact, I don't know about the fishing industry. If you want to go fishing, a lot of people aren't deciding to even go fishing. We've almost totally stopped it by sea. Now we'll stop it by land.
What's the next step?
But it never worked. It never worked when you did it in a very politically correct manner.
Luego, como si nada, empieza a hablar del despacho Oval. Que si el oro, que si lo hermoso que está, que si el brillo. Y honestamente parece más un burdel dorado que una oficina presidencial. Totalmente antiamericano. Y es más, si miran detrás de él, aparece un mapa enorme, donde, según se comenta, quiere construir un arco triunfal, al estilo del que Hitler soñaba. Ese es su enfoque en este momento. Y mientras tanto, por cierto, el gobierno ya envió $40.000 millones a Argentina, mientras 20 millones de estadounidenses pierden su cobertura médica, solo porque Trump y los republicanos MAGA mantienen el gobierno cerrado. Miren esto.
Beautiful Oval Office. It never looked so nice. We're getting great compliments, and you see outside how that's come out. It's been great. We make a lot of improvements to the White House, and we're doing that. One of the things you should be looking at is the Palm Court, because that's been totally redone. So we like to preserve and make better the White House, and that's really what's happened, and we're getting tremendous reviews, and we appreciate it.
Luego viene un momento muy incómodo, muy raro, en el cual Trump hace un comentario rarísimo sobre Stephen Miller. O sea, totalmente fuera de lugar, algo un poco grotesco, ¿no? Escuchen.
Didn't get elected. I did get elected for crime, but I didn't get elected for what we're doing. This is many, many steps above. And I want to thank Stephen Miller, who's right back in the audience right there. I'd love to have him. I love watching him on television. I'd love to have him come up and explain his true feelings, but maybe not his truest feelings. That might be going a little bit too far. But Stephen, thank you for doing an unbelievable job. And the people of this country love you, I'll tell you. And they love what you say about crime and stopping crime.
Y bueno, de ahí en adelante se descontrola. Empieza a decir que hay grandes ciudades que pueden ser arregladas, que va a recomendar San Francisco, porque según él, puede hacer que la ciudad vuelva a ser como hace 15 años. Primero, ¿de qué está hablando? Y segundo, San Francisco en realidad está viviendo una recuperación enorme bajo la actual alcaldesa. Pero bueno, escuchen esto.
And we have some cities like that, but these are great cities that can be fixed. I'm going to be strongly recommending, at the request of government officials, which is always nice, that you start looking at San Francisco. I think we can make San Francisco. There's one of our great cities 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and now it's a mess. And we have great support in San Francisco, so I'd like to recommend that for inclusion, maybe in your next group. You'll get great support. Every American deserves.
Y lo que sigue es aún más extraño.
Okay, I wanted very big the last time, and I wanted big the first time, and I wanted big the second time, but we had criminals that didn't allow. I mean, I hope they're going to go into that. I hope they go into the votes which are being stored in Fulton County and take a real look at those votes, okay? Because I won it the second time too.
Así es, señores, totalmente surrealista. Pero bueno, la cosa no termina ahí. Esta fue una de las partes más raras de toda la conferencia.
Mr. President, I wonder what you missed.
By the way, you won Georgia 3 times. Just
I agree. Do you agree with me?
I
He's
do.
the media.
For someone that
He's the media.
spends a lot of time in Georgia, I believe you won that.
Yeah, okay.
I really have a question about
You don't. The word "believe" isn't strong enough, right? You
I
know.
There you go.
It's true. I know I won too.
Luego, un periodista le pregunta directamente, entonces, ¿piensa lanzar ataques militares en tierra contra personas que usted dice que son parte de los carteles? Y bueno, Trump responde esto.
What's the next step in this war on cartels, and are you considering options? Are you considering strikes on land?
Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. We've had a couple of days where there isn't a boat to be found. And that, I view that as a good thing, not a bad thing. But we had tremendous amounts coming in by boats, by very expensive boats. You know, they have a lot of money, very fast, very expensive boats that were pretty big.
Luego dice esto otro que la verdad ya ni sé cómo interpretarlo.
Does the CIA have authority to take out Maduro?
Oh, I don't want to answer a question like that. That's a ridiculous question for me to be given. Not really a ridiculous question, but wouldn't it be a ridiculous question for me to answer?
En otro momento bastante extraño suelta lo siguiente. Yo fui elegido por el tema del crimen, pero no por lo que estamos haciendo. Ahora, yo no pude entenderle. Si alguien lo entiende, ¿qué es lo que quiso decir? Me lo pone en los comentarios.
And make them safe. And now it's like a passion for me, and it's a passion for the people behind me. So I didn't get elected. I did get elected for crime, but I didn't get elected for what we're doing. This is many, many steps above.
Y claro, no se detiene con el tema. Sigue, sigue y sigue.
As an example, if you look at Pakistan and Iran, I told them I was in the midst of negotiating a trade deal with Iran, and Pakistan was going to be in line. And because of tariffs, they all want to negotiate much differently. We were making a good deal. And then I heard that they're shooting at each other. And I said during one of my conversations, are you guys going to go to war? 2 nuclear powers. We are thinking about, I said, here's the deal. You go to war, I'm going to put a 200% tariff. I'm going to stop you from doing any business in the United States. I said it to both of them. Within 24 hours, the war ended. That would have been a nuclear war. And again, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, who was here.
Todo esto mientras ordena a los republicanos no hablar con los demócratas. Ellos están más que seguros, van a mantener el gobierno cerrado. Van a quitarle la salud a millones y, claro, van a ocultar los archivos de Epstein.
What we're doing is nothing. Are you kidding? Nothing. They write stories. Why aren't they doing this? And we'll leave. I don't have to leave it up to them, but I choose to at this moment, at least. But there's never been anybody treated in the history of politics.
Y bueno, pues aún hay más, solo declaraciones sin sentido.
And I hope that everybody's, they're involved in it. I'm not. I'm the one that had to suffer through it and ultimately win. But what they did was criminal. Deranged Jack Smith, in my opinion, is a criminal. And I noticed his interviewer was, I think that was Weissman. And I hope they're going to look into Weissman too. Weissman's a bad guy. And he had somebody in Lisa who was his puppet, worked in the office really as the top person. And I think that she should be looked at very strongly. There was tremendous criminal activity having to do. If we don't have fair elections in this country, we're not going to have a country. And I've said it from the beginning, fair elections and borders. And we need also fair press, because if you don't have fair press, it's very tough. And we've got the strongest border of anybody. Nobody has a border. We have a border where the numbers just came out again. You saw 0 people came in illegally. Now, we do take people into our country legally, but 0 people. But, you're talking about a different subject. You're talking about political crime. They have committed massive political crime. I hope they're looking at Shifty Schiff. I hope they're looking at all these people. And I'm allowed to find out. I'm allowed to, I'm, in theory, the chief law enforcement officer. But I have a very good, talented group. This is about something else. But I hope they're looking at political crime, because there's never been so much political crime against a political opponent as what I had to go through.
Más declaraciones sin sentido.
Mr. President, you're meeting with President Xi in a few weeks.
Yeah.
If you can't come to an agreement or a deal at that meeting, are we in for a sustained trade war with China?
Well, you're in one now. Look, we have 100% tariff. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be exposed as being a nothing. We would have no defense. They've used tariffs on us, but we've never had anybody sitting in that chair that felt the need to do it. And
Y para que entiendan la magnitud de este desastre, pues bueno, les dejo esto también.
I mean, they call him Darth Vader, but he's actually a very nice person, Russell Vogt. But Russell Vogt is really terminating tremendous numbers of Democrat projects.
Esta parte, amigos, es solo para que los medios corporativos luego no se atrevan a decir que esto fue una rueda de prensa normal.
But he was forced to do it by the Democrats. And as far as the shutdown's concerned, this is a Democrat Schumer shutdown. And he's trying to do it to get relevance back into the party because he's a loser. I've known him all his life. He's always been sort of a loser, but an intelligent one. But I think he's losing IQ points with time. I think that happens. I hope it hasn't happened with me. I know if it did, you guys will let me know about it very quickly.
Y para cerrar, esto fue lo último que dijo.
Yeah,
Mr. President, on that issue,
I know you've talked about, I have a question for you, and then I also have a question for Director Patel. I know you talked about having some distaste for Boston recently. Is this one of the cities that you might be looking into, and can you give us a hint about other cities that you might be?
You saying for where? For where?
For Boston.
Yeah, well, Boston has a bad mayor who at least is a reasonable IQ person. Most of them are low IQ. But, and they're so bad. I mean, what's going on in Chicago is just, you'd think the guy would say, hey, look, we have a problem, Mr. President. Could you come in and straighten it out? We could have that done in a month if we had their cooperation. It's going to be done anyway, but we could have it done in a month. Yeah, Boston, she's got 4 areas that are, wrong. And, somebody said, would we think about taking the World Cup away from Boston if they don't straighten it out? And the answer is yes, we have the right to do that with FIFA. So if we think that LA is going to be bad, or we think that applies a little bit to the Olympics too, but we'll talk about FIFA first. FIFA is very hot. If we think there's any reason that, whether it's Boston or anywhere else, that they're not doing their job, we're going to take those World Cup games and move them someplace else.
Ahí lo tienen, señores, una conferencia de prensa que solo nos confirma lo que muchos pues ya sabemos, ¿no? Donald Trump no está gobernando, está improvisando, está jugando a ser el emperador mientras el país se cae a pedazos. Pero bueno, no es el país lo único que se cae a pedazos. El mercado laboral, señores, un segmento que no tocamos hace un tiempo, claramente se está poniendo difícil en estos momentos. Ustedes se dan cuenta de lo irónico que es Donald Trump cuando sigue hablando del gran milagro económico estadounidense, mientras que públicamente los datos nos muestran exactamente lo contrario. Quiero que hablemos en este momento de algo que, aunque yo sé que muchos prefieren ignorar, es algo que ya está afectando a millones de familias, y es el mercado laboral en Estados Unidos. Un mercado que se está desmoronando. Y no es culpa de la gente que no quiere trabajar, como dice Trump. Esto es un síntoma de un modelo económico que está beneficiando a unos pocos y está dejando atrás a casi todos los demás. Antes de que entremos al análisis, quiero que veamos este fragmento de Steve Ratner.
Yeah, Mike. So we've had economic growth now for a number of years, and it is continuing. But there are two things happening with economic growth that people should be aware of. The first is it's generally slowing. It's going from here to here, down to just about under 2% in total, from 2.5% in 2024. But what's really interesting is we all talk about AI, and AI is now becoming a significant part of economic growth. AI back in this whole period here was only about 10% of economic growth. Now it's 31% of economic growth. And so the actual growth that's filtering down to ordinary Americans is dropping even by more, and it would be 1.1% in the first half of 2025. So that's happening on that side. And then what's happening in terms of wages for people, which partially reflects obviously that slowdown in economic growth, is that for the first time in a number of years, people toward the bottom are doing worse than people toward the top. You had a whole period going back to 2016 here where wages for people at the bottom quartile were rising faster than for the rest of the other quartiles further up. And then you had COVID, of course, but now it's gone the other way. And so people here in the bottom quartile are seeing their wages only going up by about 3.5% a year, while people up here are seeing them grow by more than 5.5% a year. And so we're seeing now rising income inequality for the first time in a number of years.
And your second chart, Steve, gets at why that is. A lot of it is to do with the explosion of the stock market in the last 5 or 6 years, with the wealthy getting much, much wealthier.
Yeah, we've had this extraordinary period in the stock market where you've had in 5 out of the last 6 years, you've had the stock market go up by 15% or more, as much as 30%, 25%. Obviously, huge increases, way above what the average American is going to get. And this year, while the year is not quite over yet, we're also on track for a year where the stock market is likely to go, it's not over, likely to go up by 15%-ish a year again. So that's created an enormous amount of wealth, and that's helped. It's not the only thing, but that has helped fuel this purchasing power, huge rise in purchasing power on the part of the very wealthy. You can see if you go back to the beginning of 2020, the people in the top 20% have increased their consumption. They've bought more stuff by 50%. But every other income group has only gone up about 25, which is almost exactly the same of inflation. What does that mean? It means that for the average American, they're really not buying any more stuff than they were buying 4 years ago, which means their standard of living isn't really going up. This group here, actually not this group, the top 10% of Americans account for 50% of everything that's bought in this country today. So think about that. The top 10% of Americans get 50% of the consumption. The bottom 90% of Americans get the other 50% of consumption.
And your third chart is very jarring, especially if you're looking for a job right now. The job market looks rough.
Yeah, the job market is clearly getting rough, and that is unusual when you have an economy that's still expanding. But we have a number of things going on. We have tariffs going on. We have economic uncertainty going on. We have AI going on. And all those things together have led to a significant slowdown in the jobs market. We even had 1 month, this last month, where jobs may have declined. We don't have those official numbers yet because of the government shutdown, but ADP, the private forecaster, said we lost jobs last month. But let's look at two interesting things. So ADP, which is a big payroll processing company, as everybody I'm sure knows, for the last 4 months, virtually all the job creation has come from big companies, these red boxes here. The smaller companies, all the way down to the very smallest business, 1 to 19 employees, they've actually been losing jobs for 4 months. Some exceptions, obviously, but in total, losing jobs. So small business has really been hurting. The other thing that's interesting, and these are BLS numbers, Bureau of Labor Statistics numbers, is what kinds of jobs have we been creating? We've been creating jobs in leisure and hospitality, which means restaurants and hotels and things like that. We've been creating jobs in education and health. We obviously are a nation putting more and more into health. But everything else, we've basically been losing jobs. So whether it's finance or even information technology, notwithstanding AI, or the professions like law or business, we're losing jobs at the moment, and we're only creating jobs in these sectors. And so what does all that amount to? It amounts to the fact that more and more Americans are being unemployed for longer and longer. We define long-term unemployment as being unemployed for 27 weeks or more, and that percentage is now up to just over a quarter of all the unemployed are now considered long-term unemployed. Put aside COVID, that is the highest percentage since back here in 2016, and it is rising. And so you have more and more people in the long-term unemployed ranks. So it's not surprising when you look at these polls that you still find huge percentages of Americans who think the economy is getting worse, not better, who think that we're on the wrong track, not the right track. Because when you look at the average, ordinary, everyday Americans, they are simply not getting better off at the moment.
Putting your first and third charts together, the explosion of AI costing some of those jobs as well. So big picture, Steve, we were just talking briefly in the break about this idea of a bubble right now in the stock market. And the fears, as Andrew Ross Sorkin, our friend, is writing about in this new book, 1929, and has been talking about, but he's not alone in this, that there may be some kind of a crash coming. What's your sense of how big the bubble is and how painful the burst might be?
Ok, amigos, para mí esto es una radiografía brutal del mercado laboral actual. Mientras los grandes medios celebran los índices bursátiles y Donald Trump insiste en que la economía nunca estuvo mejor, la realidad es completamente distinta. Los trabajos estables están desapareciendo, los salarios bajos ya no alcanzan, la desigualdad se está disparando otra vez. Y bueno, nos muestran algo muy claro, ¿no? Los empleos que son bien pagados están cayendo y la única creación de trabajo proviene de sectores como lo es la hostelería, los servicios, donde bien sabemos que los salarios son precarios. En otras palabras, más empleos, sí, pero de peor calidad. Mientras tanto, las grandes corporaciones, las mismas que Trump ha defendido con recortes de impuestos millonarios, siguen acumulando ganancias récord. Y ojo con este dato que se menciona. Los pequeños negocios están perdiendo empleos por cuarto mes consecutivo, mientras que las grandes compañías son las únicas que siguen contratando. Y esto no es una casualidad, esto es una consecuencia. La consecuencia directa de esta política económica, que solo favorece a la concentración de poder y de capital. Donald Trump, durante sus meses de campaña, para este segundo mandato, prometió ser este defensor del trabajador común estadounidense, de la clase media, la clase trabajadora. Pero a ver, vemos sus decisiones y nos cuentan otra historia. Reducción a impuestos de los multimillonarios. Desregulación de sectores claves. Tenemos a esta guerra comercial que dañó más a los pequeños productores que a China. Y hoy estamos viendo las consecuencias. Una inflación que no cede. Deuda personal récord. Generación entera atrapada en trabajos inestables. Y claro, si uno le pregunta al que votó por Trump, te dirá que la economía se siente peor porque Biden la arruinó todo. Pero la verdad es que la bomba ya estaba armada desde antes. Es una burbuja bursátil alimentada por deuda. Tecnología que reemplaza a trabajadores. Una clase política que sigue actuando como si el mercado fuera una religión intocable. Si pudieron ver bien este fragmento de este análisis, mencionan un dato clave, ¿no? Que el 10% más rico del país está concentrando el 50% del consumo total, mientras que el resto apenas mantiene su nivel de vida. Eso no es crecimiento, eso es estancamiento, maquillado con cifras. Y lo más preocupante es que cuando el mercado colapse, porque amigos, tarde o temprano lo hará, los de arriba volverán a ser rescatados. Y los de abajo, otra vez serán sacrificados. Así que no se dejen engañar por este discurso triunfalista. El mercado laboral no está fuerte, está fracturado. Y como cada gráfico que vimos, confirma que Estados Unidos está entrando en una nueva era de desigualdad. Más tecnología, menos empleo. Más riqueza arriba, más precariedad abajo. Si algo nos debería de quedar claro, luego de esto, es que las promesas de Donald Trump sobre recuperar esta grandeza económica solo terminaron como lo de siempre, promesas vacías. Porque un país no puede ser fuerte cuando su clase trabajadora se debilita cada día. Pero bueno, ¿qué opinan ustedes? ¿Creen que estamos viendo el principio de una nueva recesión? ¿O simplemente una corrección natural del mercado? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme en este video. Recuerden, como siempre, déjame tu like, comparte el contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.